The bill was there, on the polished mahogany table. $540. And where the tip should have been, only a cold, calculated line, 0. Diana Carter felt her stomach twist as she held the tray with trembling hands. Her black braids were tied into a tight bun after 12 straight hours serving at La Fontaine, the most expensive restaurant in the city. The man in the gray suit who had just left did not even look at her as he signed. He treated Diana as if she were invisible, like furniture that simply existed for his comfort. She took a deep breath, feeling tears burn her brown eyes. She couldn't cry there. Not in front of Kevin, the manager who was already watching her with disapproval from the other side of the dining room. Diana needed that job more than anyone in that place. Her 7-year-old son Tyler was at home with a high fever again. His asthma was getting worse every week, and the medication the doctor prescribed cost $300 per bottle. $300 that she simply did not have. The customer had been impeccable in his silent cruelty. He ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, the special salmon prepared by the French chef, and Belgian chocolate dessert. While Diana served each dish with the care of someone who cannot make mistakes, he typed furiously on his phone, completely ignoring her existence. When she asked if everything was to his liking, he merely waved his hand, as if shooing away an inconvenient fly. Diana began to clear the plates, her movements automatic after so many years serving people who had more money in their wallets than she would earn in an entire year. That was when she saw it. Under the white porcelain plate, there was something. A precisely folded piece of paper, almost hidden. She quickly looked around. The restaurant was emptying, and Kevin was talking to the cooks in the back. With nimble fingers, Diana took the paper and hid it in the pocket of her black apron. Her heart was pounding as she finished cleaning the table. It could be anything. Maybe a written complaint about her service. Maybe something worse that could finally give Kevin an excuse to fire her. Diana knew he was looking for reasons. She was the only black waitress at La Fontaine, and although no one said it openly, she felt it in the looks, in the whispered comments, in the always worse schedules she received. At 11 at night, Diana finally managed to go to the locker room. Her back ached, her feet throbbed inside the mandatory black shoes. She sat on the cold wooden bench and took the paper from her pocket with still trembling hands. As she unfolded it, she immediately recognized the elegant, firm handwriting. It was from the man at table 15. The man who left no tip. "You have something I need. Meet me at midnight at the parking lot entrance. Come alone. There are $5,000 waiting if you accept my proposal. Jr." Diana read it 3 times, trying to process every word. $5,000. It was enough money to buy Tyler's medication for months. It was the overdue rent. It was real food in the refrigerator. But it was also completely insane. Meeting a stranger at midnight? A rich man who treated her like trash and then left a mysterious note? Everything about it screamed danger. She thought of Tyler sleeping in the narrow bed they shared in the tiny apartment. She thought about how he woke up gasping last week, and she had to carry him running to the emergency room because she didn't have money to call an ambulance. She thought of the frightened eyes of her little boy when the doctor said that without proper treatment, the next attack could be fatal. Diana looked at the clock on the wall. 11:15. She had 45 minutes to decide whether she would risk everything for a chance to save her son. She put the paper back in her pocket, put on the thin coat that barely protected her from the October cold, and left the locker room with her phone in hand. She called Mrs. Rosa, the elderly neighbor who took care of Tyler. The boy was sleeping, the fever had gone down a little. As she walked through the empty corridors of the restaurant toward the exit, Diana made her decision. She was a mother. She would do anything for her son. If that strange man had a proposal that could change their lives, she needed to at least hear it. Even if everything seemed wrong. Even if every instinct screamed at her to run in the opposite direction. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment saying what you thought and which city or country you are watching from. Diana pushed the heavy glass door and stepped out into the cold night. The parking lot was almost empty, lit only by yellowish streetlights. And there, leaning against a luxurious black car, was him. The man from table 15. Waiting. Jonathan Reed did not smile when Diana approached. He merely watched her with those piercing blue eyes that seemed to calculate her every move. The cold October wind tugged at Diana's thin coat, but she kept her head held high. She would not show fear, even though her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her own ears. "You came," he said, his deep voice cutting through the silence of the empty parking lot. It was not a question. It was a statement, as if he already knew exactly what she would do. Diana crossed her arms. "I have 15 minutes before the last bus. Say what you want." Jonathan Reed tilted his head slightly, and for the first time that night, something that could have been respect crossed his face. He opened the leather briefcase resting on the hood of the car and took out a photograph. He handed it to Diana without ceremony. It was the image of a white blonde woman, wearing a pearl necklace and a perfect smile. The kind of woman who frequented places like La Fontaine and never had to worry about overdue bills. "My wife. Isabel Reed," he said, his jaw tightening as he pronounced the name. "She dines at your restaurant every Thursday. Always asks for table 17, always arrives at exactly 8. Diana frowned, confused. "And what do I have to do with this?" "Everything." Jonathan put the photo away and took out another item. This time it was documents, spreadsheets filled with numbers that Diana could not fully decipher in the dim light. "Isabel is stealing from my company. Transferring money to fake accounts, manipulating contracts, destroying everything I've built over the last 20 years. But she's smart. Very smart. All the evidence I've managed to gather is not enough for court." Diana took a step back. "You want me to spy on your wife? That's crazy. I'm a waitress, not a private detective." "No." Jonathan snapped the briefcase shut with a dry click. "I want you to observe. Write down who she meets with, what she says on the phone when she thinks no one is paying attention, any detail that seems strange. Waitresses are invisible to people like Isabel. She would never suspect." The words hurt more than Diana expected. Invisible. That was exactly how she felt every day. Serving people who looked right through her as if she were just part of the decor. And now this man was using that very fact as a strategy. "Why me?" Diana asked, her voice harder. "There are dozens of waitresses in that restaurant." Jonathan looked at her directly. "Because you need the money more than any of them. And because you're the only one I've seen serve 30 tables in one night without making a single mistake. You pay attention to details. You remember faces, orders, conversations. That's exactly what I need." Diana felt anger rise in her throat. "You humiliated me on purpose tonight. You treated me like nothing. Was all of this a test?" "Yes." He showed no remorse. "I needed to know if you would keep your composure under pressure. If you would continue doing your job perfectly even while being disrespected. You passed." "How generous of you," Diana replied with bitter sarcasm. Jonathan took a thick envelope from the inside pocket of his suit. $5,000 now. Another 10,000 when you bring me useful information. In cash, no traces. No one will ever know." Diana looked at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. That money would solve all her immediate problems. Tyler could get his medication. She would pay the overdue rent before the landlord followed through on his eviction threat. She would buy real food, not just rice and beans for the rest of the month. But something was wrong. Very wrong. "And if I say no?" she asked, even though she already knew she couldn't. Jonathan Reed placed the envelope on the hood of the car, between them. "Then you go back to your apartment, wake up tomorrow, and keep working 12 hours a day for tips that barely pay your bills. You keep watching your son waste away because you can't afford the medicine he needs to breathe. You remain invisible." The casual cruelty of those words cut through Diana like knives. He knew exactly where to strike. He knew her vulnerability, her pain, her desperation. And he was using all of it against her. "You're a terrible man," Diana said, her voice shaking. "I'm a man fighting not to lose everything I've built," Jonathan replied coldly. "And you're a mother who would do anything for her son. We're not so different." Diana picked up the envelope. The paper was heavy in her hands, full of promises and dangers. She didn't count the money. She didn't need to. She knew he wasn't lying about that, at least. "How will I deliver the information?" she asked, her voice dull. Jonathan handed her a black card with only a phone number printed in silver. "Text message. Write down everything you observe. Date, time, details. Isabel can never know." Diana put the card and the envelope deep inside her bag. She felt as if she were selling something precious, something she would never be able to get back. Her integrity, perhaps. Her peace of mind, certainly. "She'll be dining there next Thursday," Jonathan said as he got into the car. "Don't disappoint me, Diana." He knew her name. Of course he did. He probably knew everything about her. Where she lived, how much she owed, every detail of her miserable life. Diana watched the black car disappear into the night, taking with it any illusion that this would be a simple transaction. She missed the last bus. She had to walk the 3 kilometers home, the envelope burning inside her bag like a red-hot coal. And the entire way, Diana could not stop thinking that she had just made a deal with the devil. Diana woke up on Thursday with a knot in her stomach that didn't go away even after the weak coffee she made. Tyler was better, playing on the floor with his old toy cars, the new nebulizer beside him. The medication was working. Her son was breathing without that frightening sound that kept her awake every night. But the price of that improvement weighed on her conscience like stones. She had used $2,000 of the $5,000. Medication, rent, food. The rest was hidden inside an empty coffee can in the cupboard. Dirty money that had saved her son's life. At La Fontaine, Diana arrived early. Kevin frowned when he saw her, but said nothing. She checked the schedule. Table 17. Her section. Of course it was. Jonathan Reed had planned every detail. At exactly 8 o'clock, Isabel Reed entered the restaurant like a burst of expensive perfume and confidence. Diana immediately recognized her from the photograph, but the reality was more impressive. Isabel wore a navy blue dress that probably cost more than Diana earned in 6 months. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. Diamonds sparkled in her ears. "Good evening, Mrs. Reed," the maitre d' greeted with exaggerated reverence. "Your table is ready." Diana watched from a distance as Isabel sat alone at table 17. The woman didn't even look at the menu. She simply picked up her phone and began typing furiously, her face tense with concentration. When Diana approached to serve water, her hands trembled slightly. "Good evening. May I offer you something to drink while you wait?" Isabel looked up, and for a second, Diana felt that cold gaze assess every inch of her. Then the woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "White wine. The French Chardonnay. And bring it quickly, I'm in a hurry." Diana wrote it down and stepped away. Her heart was racing. She began to pay attention to every detail, just as Jonathan had instructed. Isabel checked her phone every 30 seconds. Her fingers drummed on the table with nervous impatience. She wasn't there to enjoy a quiet dinner. She was waiting for someone. 15 minutes later, a man arrived. Tall, gray-haired, impeccable suit. Diana recognized him. He dined there frequently, always alone, always left generous tips. His name was Richard Almeida. She knew because Kevin always treated him like royalty. Something about him being the owner of an important construction company. Richard sat down across from Isabel without ceremony. No hug, no kiss. Just an intense exchange of looks that made Diana feel she was witnessing something far too private. She approached to take the order. "Good evening, sir. What would you like?" "The filet rare," Richard said without looking at her. His eyes were fixed on Isabel with an intensity that seemed to burn. As Diana served the wine, she caught fragments of the conversation. Isabel spoke softly, but there was urgency in her voice. "The documents are ready. I just need 2 more weeks." "You said that last month," Richard interrupted, his voice heavy with frustration. "Jonathan will find out. He's not an idiot." Diana almost dropped the wine glass. She forced her hands to stay steady and continued serving as if she hadn't heard anything. "He won't find out anything," Isabel replied with icy confidence. "I'm controlling this. Trust me." Back in the kitchen, Diana felt her legs go weak. Jonathan was right. Isabel really was doing something. But there was more. Richard Almeida was not just an informant or an accomplice. The way he looked at Isabel, the tense intimacy between them, revealed something deeper. Over the next hour, Diana observed. She mentally noted every word she managed to catch, every gesture, every look. Isabel and Richard discussed numbers, talked about bank transfers, mentioned names Diana didn't recognize. But one thing was clear, They were planning something big. And Jonathan Reed was the target. When she brought dessert, Diana saw Richard slide a brown envelope under the table. Isabel picked it up with a quick, discreet movement, slipping it into her designer bag without even looking inside. "Half now, half when it's finished," Richard said, his tone final. Isabel merely nodded. "It'll be worth every cent. In 3 weeks, everything will be ours." A chill ran down Diana's spine. This wasn't just about stealing money from a company. It was something bigger. More dangerous. At 10 o'clock, after Isabel and Richard left in separate cars, Diana went to the locker room. Her hands trembled as she typed on her cheap phone. She reported everything. Every detail. Every word she heard. The presence of Richard Almeida. The envelope. The conversation about documents and deadlines. Jonathan's reply came in seconds. "Excellent work. Keep observing. There's more money coming." Diana turned off the phone and looked at her own reflection in the cracked mirror of the locker room. Who was that woman? A desperate mother doing what she had to do to save her son? Or someone who had crossed a line she never should have crossed? She thought of Tyler, smiling for the first time in weeks because he could finally breathe without pain. She thought of the bills paid. The food in the refrigerator. The temporary security that dirty money had bought. Then Diana wiped away the tears she hadn't even noticed were falling, put on her thin coat, and went home. Tomorrow she would return. She would observe more. Write down more. Because now she was trapped in that dangerous game between a betrayed husband and a criminal wife. And the most frightening part was that Diana still didn't know who the real villain of this story was. Jonathan Reed, with his cold manipulation? Isabel Reed, with her secret plans? Richard Almeida, with his mysterious role? Or herself, who had sold her integrity for money? The answer would come. But when it did, Diana feared it would already be too late to turn back. Diana never expected Jonathan Reed to show up at her apartment. But there he was, at 7 in the morning on a Saturday, standing in the narrow, dirty hallway of the building where she lived. The contrast was shocking. His impeccable suit against the peeling walls. His Italian shoes on the cracked floor. "How did you find out where I live?" Diana asked, blocking the door with her body. Tyler was still sleeping inside. "I need you to do something for me. Today." Jonathan ignored the question. "Richard Almeida is meeting Isabel at 2 in the afternoon. But not at the restaurant. In a warehouse in the industrial zone. I need you to go there and record their conversation." Diana felt her blood run cold. "Are you crazy? This is dangerous. Illegal. I'm not your personal spy." Jonathan took out another envelope from his pocket. Thicker than the first one. $20,000. "Half now, half later. Just record the conversation. They'll never know you were there." No, Diana crossed her arms. "I've done what you asked. I observed, I took notes, I passed on information. But this? This is something completely different." "Is your son better?" Jonathan asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Is the medication working?" The threat was subtle, but clear. Diana felt nausea rise in her throat. "You can't blackmail me like this." "I'm not blackmailing. I'm offering an opportunity." He extended the envelope. $20,000, Diana. Think about what this means. A whole year of medication. Security. Maybe even a better apartment for you and Tyler. Diana looked at the envelope. Then she looked at the closed door behind her, where her son slept safely for the first time in months. She took the money. 3 hours later, Diana was hidden behind stacked boxes in an abandoned warehouse that smelled of mildew and old oil. Her phone was recording in her pocket, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe she was doing this. A week ago, she was just a waitress. Now she was committing crimes for a man who despised her. Isabel Reed arrived first. Her heels echoed on the empty concrete. She seemed nervous, checking her phone repeatedly, looking around with anxious eyes. Richard Almeida showed up 5 minutes later. He carried a black briefcase. "Do you have the documents?" Richard asked, getting straight to the point. "I do." Isabel took papers out of her bag. "Property contracts, bank transfers, everything you asked for." Jonathan signed without reading, as always. He trusts me. Diana recorded everything, barely able to breathe. And the money? Isabel continued, her voice impatient. Richard opened the briefcase. It was empty. The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Isabel stepped back, her eyes wide. What is this? Where is my money? Change of plans. Richard closed the briefcase with a sharp click. I've realized I can keep everything. Your signature on these documents gives me control of the Reed Company. I don't need to share anything with you. You can't do this. Isabel screamed, her perfect composure finally breaking. We've been working together on this for months. I've betrayed my husband, I risk going to jail, and you're going to leave me with nothing. Exactly. Richard smiled coldly. Did you really think I would share $15 million with you? Darling, you've been useful. But now you're just a criminal with evidence against yourself. Isabel lunged at him, but Richard pushed her away. She fell to the ground with a cry. Diana covered her mouth to keep from making a sound. This was spiraling completely out of control. If you try to report me, I'll go to the police first, Richard said, looking at Isabel on the dirty concrete floor. All the transfers have your signature. All the forged documents were prepared on your computer. Jonathan will sue you, and you'll go to prison. Meanwhile, I'll take the company. He left, leaving Isabel crying on the floor. Diana waited 15 interminable minutes before moving. When she finally managed to leave the warehouse without being seen, her legs barely held her up. She called Jonathan immediately. I have the recording. But there's a problem. Richard Almeida is betraying both of you. Isabel won't get anything. He wants the entire company for himself. The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long that Diana thought he had hung up. Then Jonathan spoke, his voice strangely calm. Perfect. What do you mean, perfect? Didn't you understand? He's going to steal everything from you. No, he won't. Jonathan let out a short, humorless laugh. Diana, you just gave me exactly what I needed. Proof that Richard and Isabel conspired together. Proof of the forged signatures. Proof of everything. With this recording, I can sue both of them. Recover every cent. And make sure they both go to prison for fraud and conspiracy. Diana felt the world spin. You knew. You knew Richard was going to betray Isabel. You planned this from the start. Of course I knew. Richard Almeida is greedy and predictable. Isabel is smart, but emotional. I just needed concrete evidence against both of them. And you gave me that. Jonathan paused. Congratulations, Diana. You just saved me from losing everything. I'm an idiot, Diana whispered, tears finally falling. You used me. You put my life at risk. You made me commit crimes. All of this was part of your game. It was, Jonathan admitted without remorse. But you were well paid. And your son is alive and healthy. Wasn't that always the goal? Diana hung up the phone. She sat on the dirty sidewalk in front of the abandoned warehouse and cried. She cried for the person she used to be. For the innocence she lost. For the line she crossed and could never go back from. But when she stopped crying and wiped her face, Diana took the envelope with the remaining $10,000 Jonathan had promised. Because in the end, he was right about one thing. Her son was alive. And for Tyler, she would do it all over again. 3 weeks had passed since that day at the warehouse. Diana watched everything unfold through the news. Isabel Reed and Richard Almeida were arrested for corporate fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy. The evidence was undeniable. An anonymous audio recording had been delivered to the police, along with documents that proved every crime committed. The two would face years in prison. Jonathan Reed appeared in every newspaper as the victim. The businessman betrayed by his wife and his business partner. His fortune was intact. His reputation restored. He had won completely. Diana never heard from him again. No calls, no messages, no thanks. She had been a disposable tool. Useful for a moment, forgotten the next. But the money remained. $35,000 in total. Diana saved every cent with obsessive care. She paid 6 months of rent in advance. Bought enough medication for Tyler to last a year. Opened a small savings account that the landlord didn't even know existed. At La Fontaine, everything continued the same. Kevin still watched her with suspicion. The other waitresses still ignored her. The rich customers still treated her like invisible furniture. But Diana didn't care in the same way anymore. She had seen the other side. She knew the dirty secrets hidden behind perfect smiles and expensive dresses. One night, 2 months after everything ended, a woman entered the restaurant. She was different. She wore simple but dignified clothes, gray hair tied into an elegant bun. She sat at table 12, in Diana's section, and ordered only a coffee and a slice of pie. When Diana brought the order, the woman gently held her hand. "Are you Diana Carter?" Diana's heart raced. "Who's asking?" "My name is Helena Costa. I'm a lawyer." The woman took a card from her pocket and placed it on the table. "I represent someone who would like to offer you an opportunity." Diana stepped back, her entire body tense. "I'm not interested in more opportunities. I learned my lesson." Helena smiled sadly. "I understand your hesitation. But this is different. My client was impressed by your observation skills and attention to detail. He is offering a legitimate job as an investigative assistant at our firm. Fixed salary, health benefits, normal hours. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous." "Why?" Diana asked, suspicious. "Why me?" "Because you proved you can see things others don't. Notice details that go unnoticed. And more importantly, because you did all of this out of love for your son. Loyalty and motivation like that are rare." Helena pushed the card closer. "Think about it. The salary is 4 times what you earn here. And Tyler would have full health coverage." Diana picked up the card with trembling hands. "Costa and Associates. Legal private investigations. An address downtown." "I don't have formal education," Diana said, her voice weak. "I didn't finish college. I'm just a waitress." "You have something better than academic credentials. You have real experience. And you have character." Helena took a sip of her coffee. "The decision is yours. But know that not all opportunities come disguised as exploitation. Some are genuine." After Helena left, leaving a generous $50 tip, Diana stared at the card for long minutes. Part of her wanted to tear it up and throw it away. Never trust again. Stay safe in the predictability of the hard but honest life she knew. But another part of her, the part that had faced Jonathan Reed at midnight in an empty parking lot, the part that had the courage to risk everything for her son, whispered that maybe she deserved more. That night, at home, Diana sat with Tyler on the old couch. Her son was healthy, smiling, playing with his toy cars. His breathing was clear and strong. His eyes shone with life. "Mom, are you okay?" Tyler asked, noticing the tears in her eyes. "I am, my love." Diana hugged him tightly. "I'm just thinking about the future." She thought about everything she had been through. The impossible choices. The mistakes. The guilt she still carried for having become part of something dirty. But she also thought about the strength she discovered she had. The courage she didn't know she possessed. The ability to do whatever was necessary when everything was at stake. Diana was no longer the same person who served Jonathan Reed that first night. She had changed. Learned. Grown in painful but necessary ways. The next day, she called the number on Helena Costa's card. She scheduled an interview. Not because she fully trusted it, but because she decided that Tyler deserved a mother who fought for something better, not just survived. 2 weeks later, Diana put on the only formal outfit she owned and went to the interview. She was hired on the spot. The office was small but respectable. The work involved investigating insurance fraud, corporate infidelity cases, nothing that would put her life at risk or endanger her conscience again. Diana handed in her resignation at La Fontaine the same day. Kevin didn't even seem surprised. The other waitresses didn't say goodbye. But as she walked out through the glass doors for the last time, Diana felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Diana's story did not end like a fairy tale. She didn't become rich. She didn't take revenge on Jonathan Reed. She didn't recover the innocence she lost during those dark weeks. But she gained something more valuable. She managed to turn pain into purpose. Desperation into determination. exploitation into experience. And the lesson she carried with her was harsh but true. Sometimes, opportunities come in the strangest and most painful forms. We can't always choose how life tests us. But we can always choose what we do with what we learn. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment saying what you thought of Diana's journey and which city or country you're watching from. For Diana Carter, the waitress who found a secret note under a plate, life would never be the same again. And this time,